Hi, everyone. My name is Avery Mack, and I'm a final year PhD student in computer science at the University of Washington. I spent last summer interning at Google Research, and today, on behalf of my colleagues Rida Qadri, Remi Denton, Shaun, Kane, and Cynthia Bennett, I'd like to present our paper titled, They Only Care to Show Us the Wheelchair, Disability Representation in Text-to-Image AI Models. All images in this project are AI generated from the summer of 2023. Let's start with a hypothetical. Suppose you're a graduate student and you need to present a talk at a conference. You want some cool stock photos to make sure your presentation is more engaging, and you want ones that show diverse groups of people, including disabled people. So you go to your nearest text-to-image AI model, which takes a text prompt and generates an image, and you enter the prompt, a person with a disability. And it shows you images like these. Here, I have several images from different text-to-image models. To describe, almost all of these people are white, masculine-presenting individuals, and every single image shows a person in a wheelchair. There are no other visual indicators of disability. Notably, in 6 of these photos, we cannot see the face of the person, and 3 of these only show the subject from the waist down, focusing on the wheelchair rather than the person. These photos are dehumanizing. I've demonstrated just a small taste of the types of biased outputs that state-of-the-art text-to-image AI models produce of people with disabilities. And this work contributes to a growing body of research looking at the biases built into different types of generative AI models. Existing work has demonstrated that generative AI models produced biased outputs with respect to gender, nationality or ethnicity, race, and ability status. One study by Qadri et al., focusing on disability bias in large language models, outputs found that the model produced narratives that perpetuated bias, including overrepresenting wheelchair users, people with disabilities being sad or lonely, disabled people as needing help, or as inspirational to non-disabled people. Our work sought to investigate if similar or other trends exist in text-to-image models. Given that research is showing more ways that generative AI produces ableist outputs or outputs that discriminate against people with disabilities, it's critical that we establish channels to get feedback from people with disabilities to model creators about these issues so that models can be improved. To do so, we went to disabled communities and asked them about these outputs. They, in turn, shared insights into nuanced issues with the images. Our methods departed from predominantly quantitative model evaluation metrics so we could get feedback directly from people with disabilities. HCI methods like community-centered research are starting to be taken up in responsible AI research to better align with community values. Specifically, we conducted 8 focus groups with 25 people in total with a range of disabilities, including sensory disabilities, mobility disabilities, mental health conditions, chronic illnesses, and people with different neurotypes. We showed them images from 3 publicly available models in the summer of 2023, Midjourney, DALL-E 2, Stable Diffusion 1.5. We chose image prompts based off participant suggestions in a pre-study survey. During the focus group, we asked about the biases that they saw in AI-generated images and how they would like to see them improved. We analyzed the data using thematic analysis to derive our results themes. Now I'd like to share a few of these key themes that we heard in their feedback. Our participants immediately noticed and were upset by the fact that these AI-generated images were perpetuating existing negative stereotypes about disability. Let me give you a few examples. One stereotype that I've already alluded to and that Qadri et al. Demonstrated is prevalent in large language models as well is assuming that disability refers to people using wheelchairs, when actually there's a diverse range of disabilities and assistive technologies. Next is a persistent portrayal of people with disabilities as sad and lonely. Here, I have images from prompts of different people with disabilities, including a person with autism, a blind person, a person with memory loss, a person with cerebral palsy, and a person with bipolar disorder. In all of these photos, our participants commented on how lonely and sad each person looks. Indeed, in these photos, everybody has a sad or serious face, and several have body language that further indicates pain or discomfort. One participant commented, "What struck me is that we always concentrate on the bad. So if a person happens to have cerebral palsy or memory loss, well, perhaps that affects, a percentage of their life. But he implies that there's so much more to their life beyond their disability." Going one step further, we got several results from the AI models that had near horror movie-like aesthetics, which were unsettling to the participants. Here I have images that include faceless heads, stacks of gray bodies, Faces that have unrealistically exaggerated decaying skin, sunken eyes, faces covered in shadows, and tattered or dirty clothes. These results most often were returned for mental health-related conditions like schizophrenia or depression. I think one of our participants said it best, stating, "This image should have required a long and detailed prompt to achieve something so bizarre." The fact that these kinds of images were so prominent in response to general prompts about disability highlights the bias in these models. Like prior research has emphasized, instead of these sensationalized images, our participants wanted representations of disabled people in community with non-disabled people doing everyday activities like cooking dinner, playing sports, or parenting a child. On the slide here, I have several more positive portrayals of disability, including pictures of a person playing frisbee in response to the prompt, "A person with balance issues playing with frisbee," a student sitting in a wheelchair working with a student sitting in a desk in response to the prompt, "A disabled student and a non-disabled student sitting in a classroom," and a parent reading to their child in response to the prompt, "A person with autism reading a book to their child." Everyone looks happy or engaged in these photos, and the people with disabilities are all doing something rather than looking stationary and posed. Consequently, these photos were much more well received by our participants. Additionally, our participants specifically mentioned many times throughout the interviews wanting to see diversity in the gender, race, and ages of the subjects in the photos. Even in these photos, we could use more diversity in the subject's race and gender. But our participant feedback was not always so straightforward. Sometimes they discussed their own conflicting priorities in representation or directly disagreed with each other. Specifically, I'm going to introduce 3 questions that complicate how we think about disability representation. How can we show non-imageable features of disability? How do participants react to model interpretations of underspecified prompts? And how do filtering mechanisms respond to disability-focused prompts? There are some disabilities that are less visible, as described by Fawcett et al., or have non-imageable aspects. Non-imageable is a concept used in image generating and captioning communities, referring to elements that are hard to show in images. Here I have 2 photos. One of a person who is deaf holding a hand up to their ear, looking inquisitive, and the other of a person with memory loss who's rubbing their eye. People could very easily look at these images and think that these are people without disabilities. Our participants were concerned that these disabilities with less imageable features, like autism or chronic illness, wouldn't be as easy to perceive in images and suggested 2 options for highlighting them. First, the prompt or other textual metadata could be included with images, allowing the viewer to know that this person is deaf without pulling on visual stereotypes, like someone looking confused with a hand to their ear. Second, participants suggested showing behavior or actions that are associated with the disability. For example, if someone is deaf, they could be shown using sign language to indicate their deaf identity. Now, I'd like to talk about model responses to prompts. Prompts are inherently underspecified in text-to-image generation tasks, meaning some details of the photo are always not specified in the prompt, and the model has to fill in the blanks. Participants were sometimes unhappy with what the models produced. A great example of this is in response to the prompt, "2 blind parents with kids." The prompt doesn't make it clear if the kids are disabled or not. The model produced an image of one masculine presenting person dressed in a black suit with a walker in front of them, surrounded by one feminine presenting adult and 2 kids, all wearing pink and dark sunglasses. The dark sunglasses on all people made participants think that they were blind. Interestingly, most of the people in our focus group of blind participants were unhappy that the children were portrayed as blind. One participant commented that it would incorrectly make people think that blindness is always genetic. Another commented, "I think it should have shown the average American family, except that the parents are blind. So it's a white picket fence, 2 kids, and a dog." Interestingly, here the participant implies that he'd like the model to replicate the norm unless otherwise specified, even though his definition of the norm promotes an American-centric view that still leaves out many American families, including queer families. This prompt was even more interesting because one person has both dark sunglasses and a walker. One participant did not like the addition of another assistive technology not typically associated with blindness. She explained, "The prompt didn't say they have multiple disabilities, it just said blind. And a walker? That doesn't go together." She went on to explain that people already assume that blind people are very limited in what they can do, and adding a walker makes it look like they're even less capable. However, another participant really liked the addition of another assistive technology because she felt it represented a person with multiple disabilities. She explained, I think it's kind of cool that it added that walker in there, though, because some people have multiple disabilities, like myself. Adding in extra details, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. To her, this image highlighted the diversity of disabled experiences. Our participants pointed out valid preferences and concerns with this output. They highlight that there are trade-offs when choosing whether or not to represent real-life underrepresented disability scenarios, like showing multiply disabled people, but that have a high chance of being misunderstood and propagating negative stereotypes. Finally, we found that the filtering mechanisms put in place to help ensure generated images follow content policies sometimes filtered out certain groups altogether. For example, when we put the prompt, a person with bipolar disorder, into 3 models, 2 returned results and 1 returned an error message stating, it looks like this request may not follow our content policy. This was an exceptional occurrence in our image generation, as it occurred less than 5 times for hundreds of prompts. In our experience, it also occurred for prompts about burn survivors and depression. The error messages that we saw from the other 2 models were, sorry, our AI moderators feel your prompt might be against our community standards, and potential not safe for work content was detected in 1 or more images. A black image will be returned instead. Interestingly, 2 out of the 3 error messages that we encountered were non-specific and blamed the prompt writer rather than the model for not being able to produce an appropriate image. Thus, the model perpetuates that the user is incorrect or bad for trying to prompt about an already stigmatized disability, in this case, bipolar disorder, and further alienates people with these disabilities. This behavior mirrors broader issues in filtering AI, like models disallowing reclaimed slurs, topics, or words commonly used within minoritized communities. While models attempt to keep users safe by barring them from seeing offensive content, they contribute to making topics like disabilities taboo when communities want them to be normalized. In summary, text-to-image AI models are biased in how they represent people with disabilities. They are biased towards showing people in wheelchairs and showing people looking sad, incapable, or scary, which are not accurate portrayals of the vast diversity of disabilities and experiences that exist. Instead, participants wanted realistic portrayals of disabled individuals doing everyday things to help normalize the idea of disability in society. We need people who create data sets or who tune models to know about these issues so that we can move towards more inclusive models and therefore qualitative evaluations of models that engage directly with disabled communities are critical in responsible AI research. Finally, our work pointed to several open questions that don't have easy answers, like how to create less exclusionary filters or how models should behave with ambiguous prompts. These open questions highlight the importance of continued engagement with a diverse group of disabled people to steer the future of these technologies. Thank you for listening. If you want to learn more about this work, please reach out. I'm kmac3@uw.edu, or our paper is at tinyurl.com/gai-disability. Thank you.